Bones? Bones? Bones, what happened? Hello, Bitter here. Today we're going to be going over plasmamobile, and I'm going to introduce all the applications. Plasmamobile is an interesting beast. Now Phosh, they decided to re-implement almost everything from scratch. While they use GTK, most of the shell is actually a re-implementation of Gnome. That means they had to rewrite everything. That's why everything is so basic, and that's why development has been so slow. Plasmamobile, on the other hand, has been leveraging a lot of existing technologies. It uses kwin as an implementation of Wayland, which already exists, is already relatively mature. That's why you get a lot of nice features out of it for very little effort, as opposed to Phosh, which is the Phosh Wayland implementation, written from scratch. While the UI is not personally to my taste, it follows a lot of the tenets that you usually see from KDE. That includes a lot of configurability, so even if you don't like something, you can usually change it to a certain degree, much more than Gnome. And one other large note that I should make is because plasmamobile is using maliit as its keyboard, that's why it has a usable keyboard straight out of the box. The maliit people actually offered to make parts of their library usable by the Phosh team, but they skipped on it and decided to implement it on their own. Why? Because that's just how it seems to go. Let's boot up plasmamobile. And there's the gear that we all know and love. This starts up a little bit slow, so I'm going to cut forward a little bit. Press the power button one more time, and there we go. There's the lock screen wallpaper. Don't worry about this error, it always shows on your first boot up after install. No idea why it's there, but ignore it. Let's start off with the phone app. A pretty generic entry for putting in a phone number. Nothing too special here, but it works fine. I have no SIM card in this phone, so it's not going to be able to do any phone calls or send any text messages right now. Speaking of sending text, let's open up Spacebar, the Plasma app for sending text messages. By creating a chat, you can add users either by their phone number, or if they are in your contact list, add them by their name. And again, nothing too crazy here. You can type your message and send it, and it all works fine. It's taking about 5 clicks to the attachment button to get it to actually open. And here you get access to your whole file system, very similar to what you'd have on a full computer. Let's move on to Plasmamobile's out-of-box web browser, Angelfish. I don't know why, but whenever I see this fish, I wonder what I'm doing with my life. There we go. The URL bar is on the bottom, just like it is for Safari on macOS, since everyone is copying that now. If you install these browsers vanilla, you'll actually often find that the URL bar is on top. Woo! Best YouTube channel ever. Let's see how well it plays videos. There's definitely some popping of the audio. I'm pretty sure I've heard better from this phone, and that may be a regression. The video play quality is mostly okay-ish. Now let's see if I can scroll the video. This sometimes works and sometimes doesn't work, depending on the browser, and it looks like it doesn't work for this browser. A quick landscape view test. That sort of works. Can I scroll here? Maybe not. Oh well. Switching back in. Ooh. Oh, look at these bars on the side. This is not that unusual with this OS from what I've seen, even in Phosh. Let's kill the app and see if that fixes it. Much better. Let's see what kind of menus Angelfish has. Alright, here we have some basic items for history, tabs, etc. Oh, and there's settings too. And nothing too special here. Looks like you can set some basic things you'd expect in a browser. Clicking the tab icon, you can select other tabs to view. And there is another menu button on the bottom right. It looks like you get a little bit deeper settings here. Let's try adding this web page to my desktop. Notice that I added the Bitter Epic YouTube channel and it does not have an icon. And loading does seem to work, however. Next is the calculator app. It's pretty by the numbers. You can do some simple arithmetic. It'll show the output as you're typing, which is nice. And there are some options for more complex math as well. You can see a history of previous equations you've done, which is, I guess, nice. And a handy little conversion tool. Notice how plasmamobile shows little blue dots next to applications that are currently active. Now, looking at the calendar app, it's pretty simple looking. You can click items. It doesn't really do anything too fancy. You can't really zoom in. You have to click the task view to be able to see any details. Let's create one task for the giggles and see how it appears. Now the calendar shows a little marking to show that there's a task for that day, which is nice. Clicking that day still does nothing, but you can go to the tasks to see what's going on. Let's check out clip next. I assume this might be a useful way to browse a movie library of some kind. I don't have any media on this phone, so unfortunately I'm not going to be able to demo it very deeply. The tagging functionality reminds me a lot of doing that for MP3s. That's very interesting. Let's check out the clock app. Seems pretty generic. Let's see if we can add our own time zone. On the West Coast, unless you're using Apple software, you usually select Los Angeles. Apple really has a thing for Cupertino. Okay, there it is. Great. And can I click it? Okay, nothing happens. Here are the settings, nothing too interesting here. Let's add a timer for the giggles. I gotta hit play, and okay, there it is. We'll see if it works in a few minutes. Here is a stopwatch, you can click play, nothing too special here, but it does work. Alright, let's try setting an alarm. What is this craziness? Oh, okay. Nope, that did not work. Let's try to get back. Okay. So just tap where I want and it'll okay, it shows the number when you click it. Doesn't show all of them though, but that's okay. And there's a handy little message on the bottom telling you something's scheduled. That's nice. Let's look at Discovery, the mobile package manager. Let's look at Discovery, the mobile package manager.
Let's look at Discovery, the mobile package manager. All right, let's give up on Discovery for now. Next is Elisa. This looks like the music player for plasmamobile. It isn't too crazy, but it definitely feels a little bit weird having a set tape be the icon. It's actually a little bit confusing, but okay. Seems full featured. Looks like it would work well. I have no songs in here, so I can't really play anything. But let's check out how some of these radio stations sound. This could be fun. Okay, audio quality is not crazy, but this is definitely listenable. Looks like my whole phone is slowed to a crawl. Let's try to kill some apps and see if that fixes it. Wow. Okay, maybe that did it. Let's look at Index, the file manager. Alright, nothing too crazy. This actually looks a lot like the selector for files. Again, the file system layout will remind you a lot of the standard Linux one, or macOS, or whatever you use currently. Seems to have all the options you would expect. Generally, this looks passable. I'm not really sure what any of these Plasma apps are for, but I have a suspicion that they're for transferring files and communicating between phones. Oh, there's Anpan Man. Everybody loves a little bit of Anpan Man. I believe this is a photo app similar to iPhoto for perusing your media that you record on your phone from your camera. Unfortunately, the camera still doesn't work. Doesn't seem to have too bad of an interface though. Megapixel is your photo app. Still does not work. iPhone came out in January. It is now September. I'm a bit surprised the driver still isn't there, but it's apparently getting pretty close. The userland needs to be updated, but the kernel driver is ready. We'll see. I'm hoping we get something working in the next month or two. Next, let's look at this Nota app. It looks like it's just a simple text editor similar to gedit or Vim or whatever, but for your phone. Seems to work fine. You can open menu and it shows you options for save, open, find, replace, and other common actions like that in a text editor. Let's see how text selection works. Just tap right here and looks like it doesn't work. And we've got some emojis. Everybody loves emojis. Let's look at Okular. This is a pretty standard app for normal KDE. And I do not have any documents to view on here, but I'm sure they render perfectly and great. Let's take a quick look at the address book app. No contacts right now. Let's try adding one for the giggles. This all looks pretty standard. Put in the name, big phone number, and there it is. It might be fun to check the integration and messages later. Next is the recorder app. So you can record your own audio using the mic. Let's give this a small test.
This is a test.
can only just barely hear the recorded audio. Let's try this again, but speaking directly into the speaker.
This is a test.
Yep, that's definitely where the mic is. Let's check out Spacebar again to see if it shows our contacts we just added. And there it is, I already added the name to the phone number we used, the fake one. And if I go to contacts, I can select the sort of use the user. Not all the buttons seem to work in these communication apps. Let's check out the quintessential terminal app. Seems to work fine. It's interesting that the arrow keys, etc., are not built into the keyboard itself, similar to Phosh. So this is not a special keyboard layout. It looks like the app is adding those on top of the keyboard, kind of extending the keyboard. Come on, please, make me a sandwich. Please. Looks like it's not going to happen. Fairly full-featured. You've got tabs and a number of other settings that you can play with to adjust to your experience. Alright, last, let's check out the weather app before hitting the settings. The interface is nice and clean, definitely has smacks of an Apple interface with the full screen animations. Get lots of nice information. Let's see if we can add another city to see what it looks like. And there's Tokyo. That wasn't too bad.
Alright, we just went over all the main applications. Let's next go into the settings panel and go through each of the settings one by one just to see what's there.
Okay, things seem frozen again. Let's kill a few of these apps. Ooh, that's a lot of apps. Alright, let's go through one by one. Pew, pew, pew. Pew, pew. Oh, okay. And we've got settings. Audio lets you configure the basic inputs and outputs of your device. You can control your mic and audio. Auto start lets you choose what apps start when you start your phone. Here is Bluetooth. I have nothing to pair to this. It's interesting, it's not actually showing the names of any of the Bluetooth devices. That's going to be a bear to find anything. Quick look at cellular network, but I'm canceling out because I don't have a SIM card in here to actually do anything in it, anything useful. I'll look at colors. This lets you change the look and feel of the OS, light mode, dark mode, all those nice things. Display configuration lets you control the size of the text. This is key if you're loading apps that are not designed for a mobile form factor so that you can actually see all the things in the window. Here you can choose the fonts for the interface, nothing too special. Select the internationalization for your numbers and dates, and again, nothing too special here, but notice the really weird display of the text. Mobile hotspot. This is missing in Phosh, so it's very neat and nice to see this here. I do wish I had a SIM card in here because I would test it, but it may probably work. Next is icons. Here you can set your icon theme for the OS. Adwaita, Breeze, nothing too crazy here. Let's set Adwaita for the giggles. Here is system information. This is where you can get the version of your OS, as well as the specs of your phone. Here is language. This is where you can set the language of your OS and the fallback languages for apps. Here is night color. This will change the blue and yellowness of the display based off of what time it is. I like it, but you know, it's a matter of taste. Here's notification configuration. You can configure defaults as well as by application. Here's the keyboard settings. You can select any kind of input you want, as well as configure the auto completion, etc. to your heart's content. Here's accounts. You can add accounts from these providers. I have not heard any of these outside of Google, but it might be worth your time, especially if you want to have some kind of integration with calendars and mail. Here is a place where you can change your passcode. I've tried this, it does not actually work, and I don't really know why, though I'm pretty sure you could change your password in the terminal and it would work. Plasma style, you can configure the look and feel of your OS. Energy settings, things you can set here. Here are screen locking settings. You can control how long it takes as well as the background for it. Nothing too crazy, but nice stuff to have. Here's some basic configuration for the Plasma shell. It's nice, you can turn off things like the buttons on the bottom. I'm sure you can configure also the tray on the top that you pull down, if there's anything that really annoys you. Date and time, you can configure the layout of how your time is shown, such as a 24-hour clock. Nothing too special here. User feedback's really interesting because it has a little bit of a slider that you can move left and right to determine how much info you want to share for debug reports. Flash is your selection for your Wi-Fi network. And that's it for the settings panel. Let's give Discover one more go. Come on! Yay, it opened. Okay, it loaded. Let's see if we can install Firefox and see how it works. And click install. The installation should be started now. To see the installation progress, you have to open this left-hand menu, scroll down to tasks, and click that. Then you'll finally get some kind of progress bar, which is nice for long-running processing. Yay, it's ignoring my clicks, but it's almost there. Looks like I need to reopen the progress bar in landscape mode. Let's have a talk with Angelfish while we're waiting. Hey, Angelfish, how's it going? Angelfish. Alright, Firefox is installed. Let's see if we can open it. And no icon again, but notice there's an icon for the previous YouTube channel I added. I don't really get it why. And we've got a he's dead Jim message. Very professional. That's nice. Okay. And it opened anyway. Perfect. Okay. And notice that the URL input is on top of the screen, but it does seem to work. An interesting note is when you install Firefox or some other browser and it's not coming with the OS, it's not configured to use mobile layout by default. And you can really tell on some of these pages. Splashdot would usually appear fine on my iPhone. Let's see how the New York Times appears for the giggles. Not as bad as Slashed Out, but definitely a bit off. Landscape mode does display marginally better. The irony in this is that responsive design shouldn't really be device dependent, but these web pages must be targeting specific phones or very specific form factor.
What are my takeaways from KDE? Well, it does work. It is much more complete than Phosh, but I feel like it's also a lot more buggy feeling. Because they use all these base libraries from existing things instead of writing it from scratch, it's definitely heads and toes above where Phosh is right now. I would recommend this if you want a mostly working experience, but it is still buggy. You will get those error screens when you're booting up, and I don't really know why. You'll hit little small things, but overall it's more usable. Do I prefer Plasma? I personally have never been a huge fan into the Plasma UI. While it's nice, it always felt a little bit overly complex. Now, you might come back and say to me, well, it's configurable and you can remove a lot of things. Well, that's true. I guess I'd never really just put the time into it. I am very likely to use Plasma Mobile on this phone as my main driver until Phosh becomes a little bit more complete. My concerns with Phosh is things like the autocomplete for Japanese. Those are still marked as need help, and those have been under development for a year or two. I'm sure at some point they're going to come back to it, but the progression has been very, very slow. And you can only wait for so long on something. 8 months for this. Even if it was cheap, just having a phone sitting there in a box and not being usable for 8 months kind of defeats the whole point. I personally want to use a separate camera from my phone, and so the non-working camera is also not an issue for me personally either, but for other people that would definitely be a deal breaker. So again, Plasma Mobile might be for you. I personally am not the hugest fan of it, but is definitely the most usable, so it's probably what's right for me for right now. I'm going to visit Phosh again at some point in the future, and I'm going to be doing my best to make sure I'm not locked into any one of these ecosystems so I can just switch over when I want, because honestly, that's the best part of Linux. You can take the best parts, the ones that fit your needs the best, and leave the parts that don't do any good for you.
Bitter out, and thank you so much for watching.